Looking at these vibrant green leaves and this powdery white substance resting on an ancient woven textile, we are presented with a forensic paradox. In 1992, a toxicological study of 9 ancient Egyptian mummies, including a priestess from the era of Ramesses II, yielded a physical impossibility. The study was led by Dr. Balabanova, a respected forensic chemist. She subjected the ancient remains to gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, the same highly sensitive testing used to detect narcotics in modern criminal investigations. This abstract from the Anthracome Journal documents the results. The testing revealed positive chemical signatures for cocaine, nicotine, and hashish locked within the ancient hair and bone. The document details concentration levels rivaling those found in modern heavy drug users. The deposits were massive. This created an immediate geographic contradiction. The erythroxylum plant, which produces cocaine, and the nicotiana plant, which produces tobacco, are strictly native to the Americas. They did not exist in the Old World. Archaeologists were forced to answer a difficult question. Did the ancient Egyptians possess a massive pre-Columbian transoceanic trade network that history had entirely forgotten? The scientific community immediately pushed back against Balabanova's paper. Her total lack of control samples violated mandatory protocols in modern forensic toxicology. Furthermore, the remains tested in Munich had been gathered by 19th-century grave robbers and museum curators. This broke the evidentiary chain of custody. Researchers could not account for who handled the bodies or their chemical exposure over the previous century. In hair segmental analysis, consumed toxins are embedded deep inside the growing shaft, in sequential segments, creating a timeline. By contrast, post-mortem smoke exposure forms an external chemical coating that blankets the outside, completely bypassing those internal deposits. Independent researcher Larry Cartmel applied this rigorous replication method to freshly excavated, uncontaminated mummies from the Dakhla oasis. The results were definitive. He found absolutely zero trace of cocaine. A spectacular chemical anomaly cannot stand as historical fact if the original evidence cannot be successfully replicated in an independent lab. This split-screen dossier organizes the 3 distinct hypotheses explaining how these chemicals appeared: transatlantic trade, museum contamination, and Old World biology. Hypothesis 1 requires an ancient transatlantic trade route. To import immense quantities of cocaine and tobacco to Egypt, a civilization would need massive logistical fleets capable of navigating thousands of miles of open ocean against prevailing currents. This is a wooden model of an Egyptian riverboat, representing the verified reality of their naval engineering. To date, archaeologists have found 0 Egyptian texts, shipyard records, or corresponding South American artifacts to verify that a transoceanic infrastructure existed. Hypothesis 2 directly addresses the issue of museum contamination. Historical records reveal that 19th-century conservators routinely sprayed ancient mummies with heavy tobacco and cannabis extracts to act as a chemical insecticide against pests. During that same era, cocaine was a completely legal, widely consumed substance. Victorian museum handlers routinely smoked cigars, pipes, and consumed cocaine while physically unwrapping and cataloging these exact artifacts. Modern mass spectrometry is incredibly powerful at detecting ancient compounds, but it is equally sensitive to a century of Victorian-era pollution coating the surface of the evidence. Hypothesis 3 explores unknown Old World biology, focusing specifically on the nicotine anomaly. Unlike cocaine, other independent labs successfully replicated the presence of nicotine in Egyptian remains. While tobacco is native to the Americas, trace amounts of nicotine exist naturally in several Old World plants. The ancient Egyptians consumed celery, they harvested eggplant, and utilized belladonna, all containing biological nicotine. This chart establishes the threshold for dietary nicotine intake. Cartmel's study verified nicotine in Egyptian hair, but only in these minuscule amounts. Now, compare that baseline to this massive secondary spike. It represents extreme concentrations from heavy tobacco smokers, precisely matching Balabanova's contaminated museum specimens. The uncontaminated evidence shows the ancient Egyptians were simply eating a normal regional diet. They ingested trace nicotine from vegetables, completely eliminating the need for a transatlantic tobacco trade. Applying rigorous forensic baselines to biology offers a far simpler, mathematically sound explanation than rewriting the history of global navigation. The cocaine mummies are part of a larger ecosystem of fringe theories attempting to place ancient Egyptians in the Americas. This photograph shows the sheer cliffs of the Grand Canyon, a landscape completely detached from the Nile Valley. On April 5, 1909, the Arizona Gazette published a front-page story claiming an expedition backed by the Smithsonian had discovered an immense Egyptian cave citadel hidden deep within the canyon. The article detailed sensational discoveries. The lone explorer allegedly found extensive passageways filled with rows of mummies, ancient hieroglyphs, and copper tools. This is the facade of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. The institution has repeatedly confirmed it possesses absolutely zero records of this expedition, the named professor, or any physical artifacts pulled from the canyon. Historians categorize the 1909 article as classic yellow journalism. The local paper recognized the era's immense fascination with Egyptology and printed a tall tale to sell copies. Over a century later, this single, unverified newspaper clipping morphed into an internet-era conspiracy theory, driving allegations of a massive institutional cover-up to suppress alternative archaeology. A sensational headline holds no historical weight without physical, verifiable material evidence to back it up. To understand what actual proof of ancient transoceanic contact looks like, we have to look past journalistic hoaxes and contaminated mummies and focus on verified scientific methods. This is experimental archaeologist Thor Heyerdahl. Instead of relying on anomalies, he decided to physically test the limits of ancient shipbuilding to see if ocean crossings were actually possible. This photograph shows the Ra II, a papyrus boat built using strict ancient Egyptian techniques. In 1970, Heyerdahl and his crew successfully sailed this vessel over 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. Heyerdahl's voyage is crucial because of the evidentiary distinction it makes. He successfully proved an ancient transoceanic journey was physically feasible, but feasibility alone does not prove it historically happened. By contrast, in 2020, the journal Nature published a massive genetic study analyzing DNA from over 800 indigenous individuals. The data definitively proved that pre-Columbian contact occurred between Eastern Polynesians and coastal South Americans. Mapping gene flow via modern DNA provides the incontrovertible proof of human contact that museum anomalies and sensational newspaper articles consistently failed to deliver. Reviewing the dossier, the conclusions are clear. The cocaine mummies were a failure of modern forensic methodology, and the Grand Canyon Egyptian cave was a localized journalistic fabrication. This leaves us with several open questions. Did Dr. Balabanova willfully ignore contamination protocols to force a discovery, or was she simply ill-equipped to handle evidence with a compromised chain of custody? Furthermore, how many other accepted ancient mysteries currently sitting in museum display cases are merely the result of Victorian-era pollution? And with Polynesian and South American contact now genetically proven, what other ancient, unrecorded voyages are waiting to be verified by modern science? Based on the evidence in this dossier, do you believe ancient Egyptians ever possessed the capability to reach the Americas, or is the existing evidence entirely compromised? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.